right, artists, so here we are ready to start our neurographic portion of our portraits. So as you can see, I've got my portrait outlined with the thin Sharpie, and I have all of my highlights and shadows mapped out as shapes. It's really important that you have these as shapes and not just lines that end. For this particular process, it'll make the color portion a little bit easier, as well as for the neurographic part of it. So I have a bit of empty space here in my background, and because neurographic art is all about connections and things of that nature, I'm actually going to break up my background with some shapes. You could do whatever you want in this background. It doesn't really matter to me. You just want to have something that's going to just make the space a little bit more broken up, mostly because you're going to be adding color and you want to have smaller spaces to work with. Having a lot of larger spaces is just going to make your process a little bit more difficult. So I've got some of those now. And now we're going to start the neurographic sort of process. So a lot of our shapes here are attached to things, which is exactly what we want for this. However, some of my things are sort of floating on their own, and I want to make sure that it is not just floating, that it is connected to something. So I'm going to zoom in because this is all going to tie into what we're going to be doing anyway with the neurographic art. So right here, I've kind of got this highlight that's standing alone. So all I'm really going to do is connect it to something. And this is going to help just, again, make sure that things are anchored to other shapes, to the sides of the face. And I'm trying to make really big spaces like this just a little bit smaller, really making sure that things like this small little piece here, this piece here, these all get attached to something or even more than one thing. And you can kind of create those lines however you feel, as long as they are attached to the different parts. Okay, so once you've kind of gone around and done that, and I'm going to do that a little bit more in just a minute, we're going to do the actual neurographic part of it, which is creating those connections. So in that PowerPoint that you saw, it talks a lot about how there's no sharp edges, there's no, everything's sort of linked together and they have a connection between them. So we're going to be looking at these connection points. There's lots of them. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to smooth those out. I'm going to zoom in even more so that you've got a nice clear picture of what's going to happen here. And I'm going to start in the section where I actually just created a line that connects. And what's happening here is you've got a point that connects these two pieces, and you've kind of got these points where it's supposed to connect. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to actually broaden that connection. We're going to smooth out those connections so that it's not just a hard corner. So you can see I'm kind of creating these curved lines that attach almost like a suction cup to those pieces. And then I'm just going to fill them in with the thin Sharpie. So, and then I'm going to try to smooth out the lines so I don't have anything big and bulky. And nothing has any corners. So like right here, I've got a pretty sharp corner there. So I'm going to smooth that out by adding in some of those curves and really sort of paying attention to anything that has like a sharp edge, a massive corner like this, and really just starting to make those connections like in the examples of the neurographic art that you saw. So far I've got a pretty good thing going here with those connections, and I'm going to continue moving forward a little bit. I'm going to work on this for a little bit, and then we'll come back once I kind of have all of my neurographic lines done, and then we can talk about how you're going to add some color. All right, so as you can see, I've gotten quite a bit done in just that little bit of time and really kind of worked up some of these edges. You can see I'm going back in and kind of smoothing out some of the lines that look a little bit more rough and trying to make it have that flow a little bit more the way neurographic art does. And I'm going to continue to keep working on the rest of the face, and then I'll come back later in the video and we will take a look at what the finished result with all of the neurographic lines look like. All right, guys, so we can see that I have finished all of my neurographic connections. I went ahead and actually put some lines in my background that kind of intersected and went over some of the shapes that I made. So it created even more of those neurographic connections for me to do. So you can see they kind of get a little bit thicker, but it has smoothed out all of those real corners that were created by those connection points. And that's kind of the goal that we're looking for, is just to make sure that all those connections are sort of smoothed out. All right, so at this stage, now we are ready to start adding some color, and that will be in the next video about how to create this neurographic art with some colored pencils.